let her know that the recording started.
I'm gonna ask before you do the roll call, you either have staff to put everyone on mute until it's time for them to speak. Thank you so much.
Yes,
You can go ahead
ma'am.
and roll call now.
Commissioner Myers,
Here.
Glenn Brown,
Here.
Deborah Knoll is excused. Artie Fryer, Craig Purcell, David Newell,
Here.
Riley Larson,
Here.
Christina Melling,
Here.
Beth Pasek,
Here.
Marcella Blanchette.
Attending remotely here.
Thank you. Carla Kenta, Scott Bragan, Jennifer Waskovich.
Here.
Let's see here. Alexia Wiggins is also excused. Councilman Schisler,
Here.
Kristen Thomas, David Michaels, John Vargas, Cassandra Blaylock,
Here.
Jerry Stickney.
Here.
We do have an in-person quorum.
Thank you so much. Do you have any public comments? No. Okay, move along. Ask the board member to approve the minutes of June 28th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? All in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? That motion is carried. We go right into our action items. First is Karen Smith. Good morning.
Fine, that's me.
Really not. Can you hear me?
Barely. Is that mic on?
It's on, yeah.
It's on, it's on for the people.
Okay, can you turn the volume up? We can barely hear.
Yeah.
I don't think I can.
No, that's a staff to turn.
Okay. So, good morning. We have one item, it's a coordination contract with the Agency for Community Treatment Services, most people know as ACTS. They have a current agreement with the county that will expire next month. It's a requirement for the agency because it received DOT 5310 funding. They operate about 12 vehicles for their substance abuse and mental health programs. Last year, they provided 2,593 one-way trips. I don't like to say, sorry. And we just need approval from this board to enter into a legal agreement with them so they can comply with the requirements of the 5210 grant. And I've already confirmed with DOT that there are no issues with their current grant. That's been a question previously.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Motion to approve.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? That motion is carried. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move right into status reports. Access 2050. The draft is Lauren.
Hi,
You online?
good morning,
Good morning.
everyone.
Good morning.
Just sharing my screen quick. Can you see it okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I just wanted to start by saying thank you for having me. You've seen a lot of this information before. We're at the point now where we're putting all the pieces together. So on that note, it's been a long road since we initiated the development of the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan, otherwise known as the Access 2050 Plan. We started with the creation of growth scenarios back in 2021. We then prepared needs assessment technical memoranda, which came before you for each of the investment programs that are included as part of the Access 2050 plan. We also prepared forecasts for reasonably expected revenue sources. We then tested the allocation of those different revenue sources across the investment programs to see how well we were achieving our vision as part of the cost feasible scenario exercise. And we presented the results of that exercise back in June. Today, of course, we're here to present the draft cost feasible plan. Everyone, all the committees, the board, the public will have an opportunity to weigh in on the plan this month and next month in preparation for the adoption of the overall Access 2050 plan in October. So this is just a quick reminder of some of the components that went into the development of Access 2050, and then ultimately the financial strategy of that plan, which is the cost feasible plan. Today, I'm going to quickly touch on some of the environmental considerations that were included as part of the LRTP, and then we'll get into the draft cost feasible plan. So a requirement of long-range transportation plans is that potential impacts of transportation improvement projects, specifically capacity improvement projects, they need to be identified within the plan along with potential mitigation strategies to address those impacts. To comply with this requirement, a regional environmental consultation workshop was held back in May. Environmental agencies from all over the region were invited to participate and, of course, weigh in on potential mitigation strategies and then future opportunities for mitigation. So the left side of the screen shows a snapshot of some of the comments that were collected during the workshop. One sentiment that frequently surfaced was the need to include long-term resilience in the cost-benefit analysis of transportation projects. And really the main reason behind this is that if you look at impacts at a holistic level for transportation projects on environmental resources and can come up with a comprehensive mitigation strategy to address those impacts, it will save money in the long term as opposed to piecemealing mitigation as the transportation project impacts arise. All right, we'll now dive into the draft cost feasible plan. So again, just a quick reminder that the needs assessment technical memoranda that were prepared for each of the investment programs, along with that revenue forecast, really served as the main elements in the development of the cost feasible plan. Again, to reiterate, as part of the cost feasible investment scenario exercise, we tested the allocation of different revenue sources across the investment programs to determine what needs could be afforded to meet our performance targets and then ultimately our transportation vision. Of course, we received input from you all, the other committees, the board, the public, and with that input, we were able to select a preferred investment scenario, which I'll get into in a minute, and that, of course, guided the development of the draft cost feasible plan. So again, a quick reminder that a total of 9 different scenarios were explored as part of the cost feasible investment scenario exercise. We looked at 2 low funding scenarios. So basically, we accounted for existing revenue sources and we allocated those revenue sources across the different investment programs based on our trend spending pattern. So basically, we mimicked how we're allocating revenue sources today across those different programs. The high funding scenarios, we looked at 7 of those and we accounted for existing revenue sources along with 4 potential local revenue sources. And those included the renewals of the community investment tax, the 9-cent fuel tax, and the first local option fuel tax. And then we also looked at the enactment of the 5-cent second local option fuel tax, which would be a new revenue source. Of course, the allocation of those revenue sources varied depending on what scenario we were exploring. Through input received from the committee's board and public, scenario 2 was selected as the preferred scenario. So as part of this scenario, again, we accounted for existing and potential revenue sources, and we allocated those sources across the different investment programs based on our trend spending pattern, or again, how we're allocating the different funding sources across those programs today. The one caveat that I want to mention and direction that we received was to exclude the second local option fuel tax as a potential revenue source. And really the main justification behind this was that the likelihood of that advancing along with the renewals of those other three sources that I mentioned seemed less likely. So the left side of the screen shows a breakdown of the available revenue sources. The right side of the screen shows how those revenue sources were allocated across the different investment programs based on our preferred scenario. I wanted to note that FDUT, their revenue sources or funding composes a large share of the available revenue. And that is one of the reasons why the major projects investment program percentage is quite high. Local funding is predominantly concentrated on projects that fall under the umbrella of good repair and resilience. So just to remind everyone what project types fall under the different investment programs, good repair and resilience really includes those maintenance projects. So bridge maintenance, fleet maintenance, road resurfacing projects, stormwater and drainage improvements to, of course, enhance resilience. Vision Zero are those safety enhancements. Smart Cities really focuses on technology. So those technology improvements that will advance our traffic management systems and our traffic operations. Real Choices When Not Driving includes our improvements to bus service along with the provision of dedicated trails. And then major projects really encompass those large scale, high price tag projects, if you will, that mainly focus on improving roadway capacity and then, of course, providing for fixed guideway transit service. So again, just to reiterate, the needs assessment technical memoranda that were prepared were based on measurable performance outcomes. The cost feasible scenario is our financial strategy to fund all needs at the highest performance level as dictated by the community and as documented through those needs assessments. This is a snapshot of some of the performance targets that we are attempting to achieve across these different investment programs to address our needs. And then again, of course, based on our trend spending pattern. The major projects investment program is slightly different from those other four investment programs in that, again, long-range transportation plans require that specific major projects be listed out along with associated funding sources. The left side of the screen shows a more specific breakdown of the allocations of across those different major project types. The first three rows show the highway projects, and then this last row shows the fixed guideway transit service. The right side of the screen shows those metrics that were used to help prioritize the major projects. And really, the metrics helped us to obtain quantitative results, which removed the bias from the prioritization process. They also allowed us to focus on those roadways that needed to be addressed first. So those lower performing roadways, if you will. And then the metrics also allowed us to really optimize our investments. So get the biggest bang for our buck, focus on those projects that would be most impactful in terms of addressing our needs. So I'm going to quickly run through the different project types. So these are the Strategic Intermodal System or SIS highway projects. These came from the FDOT's SIS cost feasible plan. The projects are listed out specifically in those plan or in that plan along with associated funding levels. And we basically copied and pasted, you know, we simply incorporated what they had into our plan. The projects that are included as part of that plan include managed lanes on the 3 interstates that traverse our area, additional capacity improvements along State Road 60 and US 92, and then interchange modifications along I-275 and I-75. The non-SIS state roadway projects also came from FDOT along with their associated funding sources. Just to orient everyone quick, the solid lines on the map represent those projects that are cost feasible projects, meaning all phases, design, right-of-way construction have been funded. The dashed lines are those projects that are either partially funded or are unfunded and are considered our candidate cost feasible projects. Of course, all of these projects, again, are capacity improvement type projects. The local roadway projects, again, the symbology is the same. Solid lines represent those cost feasible projects. Dashed lines represent candidate cost feasible projects. These largely stemmed from the 2045 long range transportation plan, and that they were either cost feasible, listed as cost feasible previously in the 2045 LRTP and never advanced, or they were recognized as a candidate cost feasible project in the 2045 long range transportation plan. These projects were vetted by our local agency partners along with the public through the Access 2050 survey. The fixed skyway transit projects are similar to the local roadway projects in that these also came from the 2045 long range transportation plan. Unfortunately, none of the fixed skyway transit projects are cost feasible. The reason behind this is because the revenue source allocations that can be used to fund fixed skyway transit projects are so low compared to the high price tag of these particular projects. We were able to fund the design and right-of-way phases for the Tampa Arterial Bus Rapid Transit project. But again, the other projects remain unfunded, so they are candidate cost feasible projects. I just wanted to quickly remind everyone, the TPO's role is not really to administer funding. Their role is really to serve more as a liaison in gathering all of the local agency partners together to collectively identify needs and strategies and projects to address those needs, of course, to prioritize those projects and find funding to implement those projects, and then develop a shared vision to clearly communicate our priorities with one voice. So this is just a recap of what I showed earlier. We're at this stage where we're collecting input on the draft cost feasible plan in preparation for the adoption of the overall plan in October. And one quick note, even with the adoption of the long range transportation plan in October, the LRTP is a living document. It's a dynamic document. So the TPO will continue to work with local agency partners to program those projects that reflect local priorities or the community's priorities that are ever shifting. And I guess there's really no action today. This is more of a status item, but I'm glad to answer questions and of course, listen to any feedback.
Thank you for your report. Do we have any questions? We do not have any questions. Again, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, move right along today. Dave Newell.
Take a second.
If he's doing a presentation that we need to see, Dave, you doing a presentation that we need to see?
It is a presentation. Everything's pretty big on the screen, but I'm happy to have the lights off. It's fine.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm Dave Newell with FDOT. And this is kind of an overview of our 5310 program. So let's see. All right, so District 7 here with FGOT, it serves 5 different counties in this area. We've got Hillsborough and Pinellas, then up north to Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus County. So it's a pretty large area that we cover, not the largest one in the state, but we have pretty good population here and an awful lot of clients that need to be served. So throughout this region, we interact with 40 different agencies, plus or minus. It kind of varies as the time goes. And what we do is we kind of act as a recipient of FTA funds for these 5310 funds, and then distribute them out to agencies that are in need through an application process. So we are the recipient, and then we give the funds out to our sub-recipients that we have. So we interact with the agencies to find out what the needs are that are out there. We kind of try to reach out, we go visit and see what those actual needs are, what might be the best way to solve that, whether that's them providing their own transportation or maybe partnering up with another agency to get that transportation done for them if it's already there. This grant program itself is it's similar to the Transportation Disadvantage Program, but it has a few more little rules in it. So we have a hard and fast rule of 65 and older to qualify for this program, or as far as age weight goes. And then this also serves those with disabilities. As it says here, the persons with disability program is for a person that has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. So there's some other ways that TD counts disadvantaged or disabilities, and that might be financial disabilities or things like that. And that's not necessarily directly covered under this. So we have to be careful where this funds go and that the clients are qualified for it. What's not allowed under this program are like school trips after school, like or taking kids to school. We can't directly compete against the school bus system, and that's not primarily what these the clients that should be served are. And what we cannot do charter services, financial hardship, transportation, and we also can't do those things that would be directly TD funded. So we just have to make sure that as we're paying for trips or qualifying trips, that they're not something that should be covered under something else like TD. So these would be like Medicaid or kidney dialysis trips. So the way that we get the money, we as a state apply to the FTA for these funds, and then we take applications in from local agencies that would be applicable and eligible to be able to apply. And then we take these applications in once a year, so it's usually in January. Sometimes that fluctuates a little bit based on the schedule of when we see our funding and whatever, but it's usually in January of each year. Just prior to that, in October, we will do a workshop to bring in everybody that we know of and, hey, please invite your friends kind of thing, and just tell about what the program is and how to apply and what our system looks like and what strings might be attached to this program. There's a lot of strings. It's a case of anytime you get money, right, strings that go along with it, things that you have to do and follow, who is eligible, and then kind of just follow up with some training just to make sure that everybody's aware that it's out there. Once we get those applications in, then we internally go through and make sure that everybody who has applied is eligible. We make sure that the service that they're talking about is eligible. Sometimes we get those ones of, I know this agency does work that would qualify for 5310, but that's not the program that they applied for. This is something different. And then we will talk back and forth with the agency of saying, I know what you're asking for. Now let's see what we can do. Can we work with you? You know, I know you're asking for this amount of money or this number of vehicles that we might be able to give out, but that's not something we can do. But we can do this. Is that something that will work with you? Try to work with them. The primary awards that we give out are for vehicles. So if they're cutaway vehicles or vans, just something to be able to transport folks around. And the way that the process works, let's say you apply in January, it's probably going to be about 18 months before you get that vehicle. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. That's a long time to be without or like thinking, man, I'm going to get this and it just doesn't show up. And so we try to let the expectations, be out there. You're not going to get this. You can't just go down to the dealership and buy it. Our system works in that the state and the federal government pays for 90% of the vehicle. But we have to pay for the vehicle first. We do our part. Then they build the vehicle custom for everybody. And by the time it gets there, it's much further down the road. So we at the district have a role throughout the process. Like I was saying before, we do trainings. We try to meet one-on-one with these agencies. We go out there and see them, see the work that they're doing. By the way, there's some fantastic work that's been going on around here, and it just doesn't get out well enough. We review the applications. I was saying here, it says sub-recipients are everybody. This is not just for small agencies. This is not just for nonprofit agencies. Heart and Sunshine Line are eligible, and down to the small agencies like we've heard of ACTS. Does some kind of like, which is considered like niche work, right? Is small clientele, small amount of people that are eligible. So we try to make sure that as we're doing our review of the application that we're filling those gaps. We want to make sure that we don't just give all the funding to either one county or one agency or one a type of maybe it's just for the elderly. Well, then that leaves those with a disability out, right? And just might make sure that we're not overlapping some of the work that might be done. We do risk assessments, as I was saying. We go out and we see them. We look at what they've applied for. We look to see the actual hard numbers. How many trips are you providing? Your financial stability, that kind of thing, before we make these decisions. And then we manage our grants, whether it's a capital or an operating grant. We have a PGGA, a grant agreement that we give out to the agencies, and we have to make sure that they're following by those rules. And then we conduct triennial reviews. So every 3 years, we go out and we kind of do a deep dive at the agency and let's just look top to bottom. How are you doing background checks? And are you making sure that the vehicles are safe? Are you getting them in for maintenance on time? Are you taking care of your clients? And I think that, just goes along with that Vision Zero plan that we have. Like, safety is paramount. You can provide all the service, but if it's not safe, it can't go out on the road. Plus, nobody wants to ride in that if it's not safe. So this year, this last January, we had 24 different applications come in. Sometimes it's more or less than that, but this is a pretty standard number that we come through. We have to go through and approve or reject all of them, or kind of make those decisions whether or not we can fund this fully. I will say that we have, like I said, the 5 different counties. There's different pots of money that come in. So the Tampa urbanized area covers all of Hillsborough and Pinellas County, and then a good portion of Pasco County now as well. And we get a lump amount of money here. As you can see, it shows it was a little over $4 million this year of federal funds that came through. And then we also have some areas that are small urban and non-urban up in Hernando and Citrus County, and then a portion of Pasco. So in Hillsborough County this year, we had 5 applications from Hillsborough County, including Hart. And then I don't have the list of all the other ones, but it was a good showing for Hillsborough County. The dollars, as we all know, inflation is going up. I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but there was well, I'm sure you're all aware of vehicle prices have just absolutely skyrocketed. A few years ago, just after the pandemic was in full swing and the vehicles started going up in price, the TRIPS contract that we at the state have to provide these cutaway vehicles, to provide some of the vans and the modified vehicles just went away. The vendors decided that we cannot abide by these prices that we agreed to. It's costing us so much money. Chassis and things weren't available. And so they just said, enough's enough, and we're done. And everybody pulled out, and the state had to do a full procurement again to try to find a normal price again. Fortunately, we have now gotten a new TRIPS contract. So that's good. And agencies are now able to apply for funding. But it definitely put a big snag in our applications and what we submit, because for several years, no one could get anything. Plus, the vehicle that did cost $50,000 is now $90,000. The award that I gave out is not helpful anymore because you're still gonna have to put up so much money. So we had to go back and take a big look at the awards that we had given out, kind of pull those back and let's see what can we do. It's nice that the dollar amount went up this year, but to try to cover that increased cost, which I think we saw was between 30 and 40% increase on vehicles, some even higher than that. Sure, you know, it's outrageous, the cost. And so we're just trying to play catch up. The money is never enough, even before all of this. You know, say we've got $4.2 million in the Tampa urbanized area. We had applications for something close to $7 or $8 million. It's just, there's no way for us to fund all of these projects, you know, cost feasibly. And so we do those risk assessments to try to figure out who can get the funding. Another rule that the FTA puts upon us is that we can only give out up to 45% of the funds in operating dollars. It's capital is the thing that they would like to see go out. So vehicles or equipment or even maintenance or things like that. That's what they'd like to have go out there. And so they require us to at least give 55%. If we can't hit that threshold, then we're not able to give out operating dollars. And so then it makes things even more challenging to try to give out the money that we have in the way that we think is the best. So that pretty much sums up the program itself. If you guys have questions, please reach out. If you feel like maybe you know an agency that could benefit from this program, definitely reach out. We have some one-pagers that we can send out that kind of gives, here's all, like more in depth than this, all the rules and regulations that need to go with it. You know, what you can do to apply, where to go to find out a lot more information. And obviously, my email address here, reach out, ask. So we'd love to see this money go to good use. We'd love to see that population that doesn't get as much transportation as they should be able to get around in a very nice way. So, any questions? Right?
Yes, Lonnie, go ahead.
Yes, I probably missed it. I'm sure you mentioned it. But when is the application process?
So we receive applications in January of each year. We try to open up the application. It's in our, we have an internal system called Transib. And we open that up in mid-October. So between October and usually the end of January is when that window is open to apply.
Now, did I hear you say that there was fund card, I guess Sunshine, and are there two others here? Is that Hill?
Oh, there's probably 15 here in Hillsborough County. We just specifically only got applications for 5 this year. You know, if you get a vehicle, it's going to last you for a few years. So you might
Is
apply.
there any way we can get a list of who all those?
Sure, active 5310 recipients here in Hillsborough.
Right.
Of course, yes, I'll get that to Wally. Yeah. And
Well, I just wanted to,
go ahead.
and so Sunshine, we don't receive 5310 funding, Sunshine specifically, but we oversee all the coordination contracts for those that do.
Right.
So we can provide the list of the contracts next meeting, or I can send to Wally, he can send it out.
Okay, that's
So
what
I monitor that yearly,
okay.
and just like the ACTS thing today is that same thing, but yeah, we don't receive the funding as Dave mentioned, it's limited funding, and fortunately, right now, we can sustain and grow with the funds we have, so if we take it, it's gonna take away from those, and we don't have the capacity to serve those as efficiently as they can, so we don't receive funding and we don't apply for that reason as of now.
Okay, that confused.
And I appreciate that. I was gonna clarify that. I was using you as an example because you would be eligible in a large transit agency.
Some do,
As
yeah.
opposed to, you know, the nonprofit that, you know, maybe only has a vehicle or two. So, yes, we can definitely do it.
And one other question, I just trying to make sure I made notes. So can you did mention it near the end. What's the distinction between the operating and capital?
Sure. So capital, typically what we'd like to give out are vehicles, whether they're vans or cutaways or potentially sedans in some cases, depending on what that is. There's a few opportunities for, say, like preventative maintenance if an agency is doing their own work or gonna, replace their own headlights or things like that. We might have some funding. It could be something like we need a new copier or something like that for our computers, whatever, to run our program. That being said, it would take a lot more oversight on our part to make sure that that's what that thing was being used for and not just like a general for the business itself. It needs to be for the transportation portion. So really it's vehicles.
Mostly vehicles,
Mostly
but you
vehicles.
can do some limited.
There's some flexibility to stretch outside of that. For operating, primarily it is for driver salaries or fuel. There could be some maintenance built into that, just to maintain the vehicle. And then it could be some of the time for the person who's putting together the grant, the invoice and things like that. So maybe some administrative funds in there. And then maybe some insurance on the vehicles, just some kind of what is needed to make the system run. It's like maybe direct costs or indirect costs that go. So a little bit more. There's no space in there, but really it's for driver salary and fuel.
Okay.
That's
One other question, I'll end with this, because I know we've had discussions about salaries and how to make sure that we had salaries that people would be willing to be drivers. How is that looked at, or has that been an issue that agencies presented to you? Or?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. It's from our standpoint, it's not my place to tell the agency how much they can pay somebody.
Right.
It's their decision. That being said, the money is limited to what it is. So if you were to choose to pay somebody twice as much as the normal rate or half as much, if you can get them to stay and pay, the money just either goes away sooner or later. That's okay. Yeah, I don't necessarily have oversight over that. You're gonna pay the person. I don't know what goes into these, nor do I want to get into that.
Right.
Who gets paid what. But
my question was really, and I think you've answered, is if they feel that they can get a driver who would be very useful or long-term or whatever, they've got flexibility.
of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just looking for some kind of a proof. If we're paying for someone's salary, then we'll make it our invoice and I want to see what this person did to just justify the time. Did you provide trips? Is it just 40 hours a week that you're just not in by, or you did 200 trips this month? You can just something for me to justify what we're paying.
And if there is an agency that might be interested in making the application, you said they can contact you?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's enough for me.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah.
We have moved right on to Business Zero Street with Lisa. Here.
She's online.
Getting my thing all shared.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right. Of course, I practiced this earlier and now it's going to give me problems. Share. Let's see. Okay, there it goes. We'll try it this way. All right. Okay, so by my recollection, it should be full screen and you should be able to see it. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, now that I can focus, I'm Lisa Silva. I'm TPO staff and I have the honor of being the Vision Zero coordinator. So as a project manager for this project, it's a Vision Zero street study of 2 corridors that are located in the city of Tampa, but are owned and maintained by the county. So we have couple of jurisdictions involved, so it's extra tricky. So both of the corridors are on the high injury network identified in the City of Tampa's Vision Zero action plan. The limits were both started at Armenia Avenue and continued over past Florida or Nebraska. So we have a 1.5 to 2 mile range. They're consistent with the Vision Zero action plan adopted by the TPO and the cities. That was one of the impetus and motivations to get going on these. We first, of course, analyze the data and the existing conditions of a corridor. I want to go out to review them. So we looked at all of the types of crashes, the time of day of crashes, the mode of the crash, and you can see there are significant amounts sprinkled throughout the corridor. We had 10 fatalities in a 5-year range on these corridors. So all that was factored into our analysis and recommendations. It has very high speeds along the corridors, or 4-lane undivided roadways, no bicycle facilities. Waters enjoyed a transit route, but Sly does not. And then so lots of intersections and bus stops to consider. Sly, similar conditions, a little lower speed limit, significant vehicle ranges, so 28,000 approximately on both corridors, lack of sidewalk facilities and landscaping, so that's kind of the characteristics of the community. Hillsborough County is the owner and maintainer, as I mentioned, so we wanted to utilize their program. They do a tier 1, 2, and 3. Is how they group recommendations and improvements for corridors. So that gives them that flexibility of do low cost, quick build type things up to like more major things. So it helps them in their budgeting and programming. Of course, we're the TPO. We always seek and make sure that those that live, work, and enjoy and drive on the corridors opinions are considered. So we held 2 open houses, and we did an online survey and in-person survey, asking a lot of questions and getting their feedback about what they would like to see. And then took all of that and synthesized it into 6 distinct different recommendations, everything from leave the corridor alone to like a 5-lane taking of additional right-of-way type of scenario. Then we analyze all those for the pros and cons based on all of the things that we heard from the community were important to them, and then all the technical things that our planners and engineers have to evaluate when making safety recommendations. They got then sent through a second synthesis looking at the complete streets components, looking at the 2 lanes versus 1 lane, the turn lanes, pedestrian refuges, and ability to stage. So that's programming of the things were also evaluated. And then they were synthesized into these results. So we had 6 alternatives to offer up to our jurisdictions, and then the recommendation of this option, the 3-lane option. So with pedestrian refuges, some street trees, buffers, and additional crossings to get people to and from their destinations much more safely. And you could tier it by like not having all the landscaping, everything put in, but some like bollards and some paint and restriping initially. And then again, this is the full repaving and if we could do utility work, et cetera, in the future. So then also another tool in the toolbox is speed is our #1 factor in safety. So lowering the speed limits to 25 is an additional recommendation. Potentially redesignating it not a truck route might help with the safety. And so there's all these recommendations are in the final report that was adopted by your TPO board on June 12th at our website. So if you go there and Google Vision Zero Streets or anything, it'll pop up. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention the very exciting things coming up. We have annually, we have the Gulf Coast Safe Streets Summit, and that is 8 counties and 6 different TPOs have a commitment to Vision Zero. So they host a regional education and encouragement summit and bring in speakers and talk. So that will be on October 9th. Mark your calendar, go register and save your spot, because we have an extremely fabulous international speaker coming to town. We've leveraged his attendance, Gil Penalosa. He is the 8 and 80s Foundation founder. So if roadways are designed and planned for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, then it's inclusive of everyone. So he's also noted for starting the Ciclavia or open streets events in Bogota, Colombia. So we're very excited that he's in town. And so he's going to be shared with the State Coalition on Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety that's meeting at the same time. So I've invited all of these state safety professionals to stay for the afternoon of the Wednesday the 9th, which is our summit. Included with the summit is a reception, because I imagine everyone is going to be so inspired and excited after being in the room with all the speakers. They'll want to celebrate and share about it after. So the location is going to be at Terminal 2 at the port, which geographically, that's right next door to the aquarium. So it's a very short commute from County Center, and it's very pedestrian and bicycle accessible. And it has transit, free transit on the streetcar right along it. So we're blending all of our great modes together. And so, also, the Downtown Partnership is going to borrow Gil for the downtown debriefing on that Wednesday morning. Then Plan Hillsborough, our agency that are, we are part of Plan Hillsborough, the TPO is, and they're going to have a community conversation with national leaders. So Gil Penalosa is going to join Jessica Reiser-Hart from the Families for Safe Streets. She's flying in. Walk Bike Tampa is sponsoring her as a speaker for that community conversation. There's free babysitting and daycare at that event, and that is in the evening. So we've turned all of this into Safe Streets Week. All this material is on our website, planhillsborough.org, and there's links to go register for the various ones. The community conversation is free. The summit has a $25 fee for professionals, and it has a reduced one for public staff and students. If anybody needs a scholarship, you just reach out to me and I'll be glad to work with you. So thank you for letting me monopolize and tell you about all of the great things that are in your addendums today on your agenda. That concludes my presentation.
And thank you. Have any questions, anyone? Thanks so much.
I neglected to share that I believe, rumor has it that Commissioner Myers is going to be one of our dignitaries on our dignitary discussion panel at the summit.
I do plan to show up. I don't know about the dignitary now, but.
Oh, okay. Well, Jody told me you were.
Okay. So now we'll have Sunshine Line. Jerry?
Good morning, everybody. Jerry Stickney with Sunshine Line. So I handed out our operating stats. I'll start with the back with the 2024 grant year totals for the TD Tampa Bay. So that grant year just wrapped up. We ended up with 645 trips for that grant year. We did partner again to request more funds for this upcoming year. It looks like it's going to be approved. And with that, and that snippet below for 24-25 year is to expand the service. If you remember, a few months back, we had to put a cap on new clients into that program because they were limited funds. They were running out, so they wanted to make sure they could sustain what they had. So this is to reduce the wait list, increase the 7 days a week, adding overnight for high priority trips, and next day service that's otherwise unavailable. So program is going strong. So I'm excited to see some more funding toward that program so we can continue to see it grow. And again, all of this is with the innovation grant, ISD grant with CTD, and it's also learning from this and figuring out how we can sustain it once those funds are not available to us anymore. So it's a good program. So excited to see what this coming year holds for that. And then our operation stats for the last 3 months, we're currently sitting at a 95% driver capacity. So we're staying strong, and our goal is to stay at 95 and higher. Once we hit 2 vacancies, we're recruiting. So we've learned now it's a perpetual recruitment no matter what we do. So we just, we're ready, and the team's got it ironed out really well. For May through June, all our stats are here. We've been talking a little bit about some of the call center and the customer service. We've been getting more calls, and it just continued. We had a rough July with our call center. We also had a turnover. We had 3 different reps that transitioned different jobs, and had 2 vacancies for the most of July. Our overall answer rate for the year, it's coming into about 92% for the answer rate. Still meets our expectations, but that quality is not what we want to look for overall. And some things that we've done, we've shifted. We've actually are adding 1 more customer service representative to the team. And then we're also adding in some extra training and some different break options, so that way we can ensure there's coverage to not allow this to happen again. But with that, and why we have more calls is luckily we're growing, which is a good thing. So as the grant year wrapped up for the Tampa Bay, so did our grant year with the state. So I wanted to share where we sit as of now. This is preliminary, so we'll get our audit that will get reported us at the end of the year from the TPO. But as it sits as of right now, this past year, we've increased new clients by 39%, yielding a 36% increase in our trips between our door-to-door and our bus pass program, which we talked about the past year, where we get so focused on doing the job, we forget to tell our story and the outreach and be targeted with what we're doing. And that's what we focused on this year, is getting out there, letting people know about our service. And it seems to be working. So we're excited for that piece of it. Our trips specifically for TD went up about 20%, and our bus pass program went up 16%. And it's pretty neat when we look at our impact as the community transportation coordinator as a whole. We have our door-to-door program, our bus pass program, and supporting the coordination contract with the 53 funding aspects. And when we look at what we do holistically, anticipating that the CTC here helped impact 980,000 trips in Hillsborough County amongst those 3 programs this past year. The year prior, it was 783,000. So the impact that we all put in effort, y'all telling people that I've gotten emails and calls from most of you here where it's like, hey, what about this? Let's connect here. And I appreciate the support that you have, and the team and operations and our customer service staff. They've been working really hard to continue to grow, and I'm excited for where that's headed. And the pictures on the front of this operation stats, last meeting, we had the electric vehicles, the pictures there, and I came across these in our archive, and we're the community action agency, long way from EVs to the station wagon and the very lovely, unsafe looking van sitting there with those seats. So it's just amazing to see how far we've come, especially from pagers and payphones, station wagons, to electric vehicles, and our dispatching, and we have tablets in every vehicle. It's incredible. And I kind of wanted to shift that over to where we're headed. We've talked about our software and our scheduling system. I noted last meeting that we're going through some difficulties trying to get things pieced out. And unfortunately, we had to terminate the initial award for that contract. But it was amicable. We came to an agreement that it wasn't going to work and meet the needs that we in Hillsborough County needed. So fortunately, the next awardee, which is EcoLane, they were neck and neck on the RFP, and they were still interested. And on August 7th of this month, the VOCC approved terminating the prior contract and awarding the new contract. And we are already up and running with meetings with them. They're going to be on site next week, and we're still looking to hit our goal at the end of the year, rolling out into this new software. And I have a video that Wally is going to play for you. It's a snippet of EcoLane and what they're offering, what we're going to be bringing to the county, and station wagons, pagers, and payphones to where we're headed. So I want to share this real quick.
In a traditional scheduling environment, you take all your trips and do a batch scheduling process the day before, either manually or with the help of software. You build your schedule, deal with the outlier trips that don't fit, and optimize to the best of your ability. This is the best your schedule could ever get. Once service hours begin, however, the realities of transit rear their ugly heads. It's a minor miracle that every vehicle gets on the road at all, much less staying on time amidst traffic, weather, cancellations, and other incidents. In a traditional environment, an agency is completely dependent on the dispatcher to keep the schedule from falling apart. EcoLane scheduling works differently. With EcoLane, the day before process sets up a virtual schedule based on how things should work in best case scenario. We know that once the day begins, anything can change. As the day progresses, EcoLane monitors the vehicles that are on the road in real time and dynamically schedules the trips in response to the active, changing conditions. If a vehicle is falling behind schedule, the EcoLane software distributes upcoming trips to alternative vehicles in order to release the pressure and maintain the original desired schedule. In the case of no-shows, schedules are updated automatically based on that event. In the case of a cancellation, EcoLane automatically removes the canceled trip from the schedule and attempts to fill that hole with trips from another vehicle's manifest. All on the fly, all automated, and all in real time. What's it all mean? It means that EcoLane customers almost always see their rides per hour productivity increase on the day of service, which results in decreased costs due to decreased miles, fuel usage, and deadhead. Only in an EcoLane environment will the delivered productivity or rides per hour meet or exceed the scheduled productivity. That is the EcoLane difference.
So there's those features where our team, we're running a 94.6% on-time performance, which is really good in the mileage, in the distance that we cover. But those are things that we'll have our dispatch team monitoring, but stuff that you can't catch on the fly, little things like that. And the other piece that I'm stating for later to share with y'all, there'll also be an app that will be available for our clients where they'll be able to get notice of their ride that's coming, a tighter window. We've always talked about that 90-minute window. So with some automation, we'll be able to, looking at the notice of, 30 minutes or so beforehand is what we're looking at to get a notice. We're able to track and see where your bus is. So you know when they're coming. You'll be able to book trips on the app, cancel trips on the app, and it's going to be another aspect. Our call center will always be available. We'll always be there to support. But it's a lot of things we've talked about with innovation and technology and providing options for our citizens. So I'm saving that one for another time because it's exciting. I'm just really excited about where we're headed, the growth we've had this year, and just thankful for the support that all of you have for us. And I want to offer the final piece. We did a couple site visits with some people that reached out to us, and I want to offer it up to everyone else if anyone's interested to come see our location. We're in Seminole Heights off of the Hannah and 30th, Old Fire Rescue headquarters. That's our main shop, and we have two different parameters. We come in for 2 hours, come in for 4 hours. We'll introduce you to our dispatch team, show you how we work, how we dispatch schedule, our customer service team. We'll get you on a bus, take a few rides if you would like. And it was a lot of fun. Got a lot of good feedback from the last couple of people we brought in. So I'll offer it up to any of y'all. If you're interested, give me a shout. We'll get something set up. And I can't thank y'all enough for the support and for my team that does all the real hard work, So and that's all I have open for any questions. Are there any questions?
Does EcoLane also then they initiate the taxi option when it's necessary, or is that?
So right now we don't have the taxi contract currently, but that is the plan. Once we get that up and running, the beginning of next year, we'll be looking for some of that taxi service or some a vendor of some sort for that to bolster even the TD Tampa Bay program is going to continue. As I mentioned, how we can sustain that. That's what we're looking at. EcoLane, they'll have a part in helping for sure.
And I understand, the bus tickets and whatever, but how does it work with the taxi? When you have something, you do it with a taxi, what happens?
So currently we do 100% of all of our trips.
Oh, okay.
So with the TD Tampa Bay program, we refer them to PSTA, and they have a program and they get set up and they book through Pinellas County. But prior, we used to have a taxi contract, and we would good old fax. We would fax over at the end of the day the manifest of the trips that we needed them to cover, and we get confirmation. And And we validated the next day, you know, what was completed and whatnot. So it was good old facts. I'm hoping we can maybe get beyond the fax machine, this go around.
I was just, thank you. I was just looking really quickly. It looks like it's an AI-based software. How does that change the dispatcher role? Because certainly I've played with some AI and it was great, but you do need to really monitor it.
Absolutely. So that's one thing we're working on out with parameters, different time frame for how long it can adjust, and for specific trips and funding where it's got to get approval to move. So the dispatcher is so imperative to, and AI is great, but especially with traffic in Hillsborough County, it'll learn itself. So when we get a couple years down the road, just because a lot of our clients take the same type of trips, go to the same places, it will be more efficient. But as of now, I guess we're slightly opening the faucet for the automation, so it'll work, but it'll be a lot more parameters to where we're going to approve, adjust it, and then make sure that it's right.
So it'll still be a good monitor.
Absolutely. We're not changing our dispatcher scheduling team at all. Yeah, absolutely. Because you just can't, the human piece, you still got to be able to validate and verify. So
A lot of people like to think it's magic.
Yeah, Audie.
Yeah, I just have a question about some things here on the statistics. You may have mentioned it, but it just, it helps me when I hear an explanation.
Yep.
So total clients served in July is less than what it was in May and June. So what?
So for July 4th holiday, so we had a couple days that we weren't in service.
Okay.
So that makes an impact.
All right.
And weirdly enough, for June, our trip count is down. Karen and I looked at this, and there's actually, the way the weekends fell, there's almost a whole week less in service. So that's why the total trips are less.
Okay.
So that's great question, because Karen and I were like, wait, this is weird. And we had to go back and actually look it up.
Right.
Yeah.
It would help with things like that. I mean, it's easy to notice that.
Take a little notate at the bottom.
Right, please.
Absolutely.
I have, I guess, two others. For bus trips, similar kind of situation. We see May, June, and then July as a decrease.
Yep.
So what's?
So with that and the, as far as the number that's issued and then how many trips. So when clients call in every month, we ask them on what their use is for that month. And that's where it changes to where if they have a certain amount, there's a threshold where a monthly pass is more cost effective than individual passes. So that's where that shifts. So if, and again, if a monthly pass, there's more trips that are accounted for that pass versus 5 single day or, so that's where that changes. So it just depends on what their request is and what their need is for that coming month. And that's why with the bus pass issued and that piece changes so much, because it's dependent on what they need for that month. Some clients get a full month pass, unlimited every month. Some, it varies based on what their need is.
So are the numbers based on the amount of trips they can take, whether they take them or not, or it's based on the actual trip?
So it's based on, there's a formula that we have from the state with Karen.
Actually, Hart sends a report of the Flamingo swipes. So.
Right.
I'll start the new Flamingo.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's actual trips.
Yeah.
Or the parts that are succeeded.
Yeah. And for clarity, just because we had a 5310 discussion today, when it comes to the system-wide trips and the things that we report on, when I said looks like we're gonna hit about 980,000, we actually take out the Hart trips, so we don't duplicate that as well. So we don't take credit for bus passes that we issue and then take credit for trips from Hart as well. So we make sure that we don't duplicate those stats either.
Let me say this before I forget, because I intended to. I think you're doing a great job. But when we have to talk about what we're doing, that kind of information helps us.
Okay.
Because if we get a question, and I'd like for us to be able to explain. So specifically about these two, if you could give us some information. to help us understand?
So what I'll do, I'll create a little FAQ, for all these different, I'll put notes, so for moving forward for these months. So if there's a reason that something's different or anything like that, it'll be notated on this flyer, but, I also have a couple like FAQs and little, things we created for our staff for when they're out and about talking, to people for that exact same reason. So I'll look at those and, I'll send them out to Wally or bring them to the next meeting and for everyone to have as well. Just it's a full play, goes through all of our different pieces of who we are, why we do what we do. Yeah, and then from there we can say there's pieces that we're missing we can add and absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
I have one more. The percentage of calls answered, same situation, May, June, July. July is a decrease. Can you?
Yeah, so in July, we had the whole month, we were down 2 representatives.
Right.
And we were just not performing as the best that we could. Since then, we filled those roles. The 7th rep starts Monday. I believe it's Monday. And then we're adding an 8th one that will start in about 2 weeks. We also, and I failed to mention this too, but I also work with HR on options of utilizing temp service when we get to that situation. There's a lot of training that goes into the call center with our different funding types in our system, but to prevent that from happening, we've set something up to try to pilot that if needed down the road as well. So.
Okay.
I don't have much of an excuse. It's just, we were shorthanded, we tried to cover and we just didn't.
I'm not asking for an excuse.
Yes.
It's just, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Because I served as a representative from this board on a community citizens advisory. And oftentimes I'm hearing things that they're discussing. I'm not able to respond or I listen because I see how important what we're doing here. And there is occasional times I don't think they're considering our population and what they're discussing. So I don't want to jump into a conversation and then I don't have a response.
Absolutely.
And I'll give you an example. I'll be done with this. In that Vision Zero Street study, when Lisa Silva was talking, I don't fully understand this, but they say these are these are city roads that they were talking about, particularly Sly and Waters. Anybody who's traveled along those roads know that they're like in bad shape. But I don't hear them discussing, well, maybe in what's our options in the studies and recommendations, how to improve them. But for our population, it's really difficult for them to traverse those areas. They're bumpy roads, they're not lighted, they move right into communities, and the roads, people speed down those bumpy roads. So I don't know if there's really a voice, or here's a better question, who can help me? Is it possible for us to make a broad statement to say how important it is to improve those roads and lighting? I mean, I think there was one suggestion about improving the lighting and, you know, even things such as shaded stops for buses or whatever would be beneficial for our population. Children, disadvantaged, handicapped, and just make a broad statement. I don't know if we can, but I think there needs to be some conversation about it because I'm not hearing it as directly as there's some issues in that citizens advisory. Is that making sense? Because I'm representing this group. I'm not always having an opportunity because I don't always have enough information. So that's really the background of why I'm saying this. So I guess the overall question is, I know that they're doing surveys. Is it appropriate for us to make a general broad
comment about what we think is necessary and needed? Or is that out of line?
I think, and it's a good question. I think, I see it as a twofold. One, you can invite, Vic, Vic last name over at the city,
Yeah.
VA, to one of your meetings, okay? Because when you have roads in the city, is a part of the county, then the city takes care of it.
Right, I
And the
understand.
county has roads in the city that we take care of.
Right,
But the educational piece that every member of the board should be informed as well. You bring up a very valid point of how that board would be informed of the process and how they could help. I think by bringing it light to everyone, that would be good. Because you're gonna have to have key, I think Jared could attend your meetings so that he can share the same information,
Absolutely.
you know, with your board so that everyone can address and understand the concerns. And how do we push that information out to the people we're serving? That's all I'm saying. Any other questions? Does that help you, Artie?
no, that's fine. I can give you the dates of the meeting.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm sure you can find it there. So
And Jerry, you might connect with Vic over at City of Team.
Okay.
Meeting and see how you can coordinate.
However, we can communicate that, because you know, again, I'm aware that if we communicate, then we can address issues. But when
Yes.
we're
And perhaps you can be at the same board meeting,
Yeah.
you know, the same meeting that can address this from both sides.
sure,
And that falls right in line with our initiative within this year to move forward of being present, being in the community, letting people know about us, explain us,
right.
build. So that's perfect. That falls right in line with what we want to do. And
Okay, I mean, if we can get that done, I think that'll be extremely helpful.
And then Jerry, if you can give us an update at the next board meeting on that, you know, whether it's
Absolutely.
coordinated, what have you, so we'll know the follow-up, okay? Any other questions? Thanks so much, Jerry. We'll move right into, power report, Jesus. Good morning.
Good morning, board.
You turn the lights off over there. Artie, okay, yes, thank you.
Good morning, good morning, board.
Good morning.
As Supervisor Garcia, our staff. I'm here to provide an update on Hard Plus, our ADA current transit service. We look at two metrics. We look at on-time performance and ridership. So for on-time performance over the past 3 months, we were in the high 90s. Notably, we were at 99% in June and July. This is the drop-off on-time performance. So did we get you on time to your appointment? And then the next one is the pickup on-time performance. Did we pick you up on time? You'll notice that there are less trips in June and July. Over the summer, less people travel, people are out of town, things like that. There's no school, we provide some trips, so those are gone over the summer. And since there's less people traveling and less traffic as well, we have less latent trips in June and July. And the other metric is ridership. You'll see here that same dip over the summer that I just mentioned. Notably, there's like a 40% drop in subscriptions. Subscriptions are the recurring trips, so people who book like a constant trip, like every Monday at 8 a.m. pick me up for my dialysis appointment, or for my Pepin Academy, I go to school there. So those trips, they decrease over the summer because school is out, so those subscriptions are flipping cold, so things like that.
Now you'll notice here that subscriptions and demands doesn't equal total. That's because of the cancellations and no-shows. You'll see here that cancellations dropped significantly in June and July because of what I just mentioned. Since their subscriptions are more likely to have cancellations, that's like a recurring trip. If you have like every weekday for the whole month, that's 20 trips, you're likely to at least one. So your plans may change at least a couple of times. Whereas the demand trip, which is the one-off, and people call, hey, take me to the grocery store tomorrow, those plans are less likely to change. Those trips are less likely to get canceled. Looking at very late trips, so trips that were an hour or more late, so those decreased significantly over the summer, and or from like out and getting us into the summer. And then in the summer, they stayed relatively flat, under 10 trips per month that were that late. And lastly, the taxi trips. So it's been stable over the past 3 months between 8,000 and 9,000 trips a month, which is notable because if you recall from the previous presentations, it have been growing exponentially. How many trips we're uploading to Yellow Cab. I think we've reached a point where we're at a good number. We don't need them as much, or we don't need to keep growing that number. But also the number is not going down. We don't need the help. It's been stable, which is good. And the last update I wanted to give, we are looking at, so we have a bottleneck on Sundays. Sundays, it's interesting because it's a very light day, but we have a big bottleneck then. There's a lot of delays. So we're looking at fixing that, rebalancing weekends. So right now, on Saturday, we have 25 operators scheduled and 15 on Sundays, so way less. So we're looking at taking a couple from Saturday, putting them on Sunday. We think Saturdays can handle themselves, but a couple less, and Sundays need the help. So that's what change we're looking to make for January. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Have any questions? Anyone? Thank you so much.
Quick question. I was curious, with the different trips, I know it's listed scheduled, do you know how many completed trips you guys have for Heart Plus and then the taxi? Or is there, is that just the cancellations minus the 11,000? I was unsure completely on like the completed versus scheduled trips overall.
Yeah, I need to get that number. Pretty sure, I'm not sure. Yeah, I always struggle with that math in there because there are so many different metrics, and in the end, there's also the number we report to the NTD.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly the same. It's in that ballpark.
Okay.
I've never really paid much attention to that.
Okay. Yeah, I just think for us, just as we're working with a new vendor and looking to do a taxi contract or something in the future, just love to see something to correlate to for the area. If that's possible for completed, specific Heart Plus and then taxi.
Well, for NTD reporting, we use the completed trips, and NTD is at the 14,000 ballpark.
Okay.
And then taxis at 9,000, so that gives them the end.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Then we go right into old business and new business.
Yeah, so I wanted to go ahead and remind the board for the next upcoming meetings for October 25th and December 20th. The only reason why I bring this up is because I want to make sure these dates are still okay with everyone. Specifically, the December 20th meeting, since it's the Friday before the holiday break. So just wanted to open up the floor for that. If there's any discussion that wanted to be had. If not, we'll go ahead and proceed with those dates.
Maybe we might want to look at moving up to the 13th. People start traveling.
And
Like that.
for me, it really depends on when our school's out.
Yeah. But I wanted to open up that, give you guys that opportunity to start thinking about that. Actions need to be taken, but if the date was to change, we'd have to, do some legal stuff, make sure, notices, things like that are well, put out. For the
My recommendation would be if we could move it a week up, just because I feel like a lot of people will start traveling and maybe missing more people that day.
So,
Move it up to December 13th.
December 13th, Looks like there's a unanimous decision on that. So I'll go ahead and, we'll make the changes necessary for that. And then, so that's done with that. And then, as you may have noticed, we do have a new member in the room. So Emily Ugar and Ian Martin no longer the representatives for the Agency for Healthcare Administration. So now Riley Larson, who's at the edge of that table over there, he is going to be the new representative for them forward. So I wanted to introduce him to you all. And that's really all I have for new business.
Good morning, Riley, and welcome.
Good morning. Nice to meet you all.
So yeah, we'll move the December 20th meeting to December 13th. We'll make the notices on that.
Anything else need to come before this board? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much. Stay safe and enjoy the weekend.
We actually.